The storm rolled across the kingdom like a living creature, howling, clawing, ripping branches from ancient trees. Lightning tore through the sky, illuminating the stone walls of the Alpha King's castle. The gates were thrown open, not for royalty, but for terrified villagers fleeing the fury of the night. Guards ushered people inside the grand hall, their wet clothes dripping onto the marble floor. Mothers clutched their babies. Elderly men shivered. Children whimpered. Thunder shook the walls again, making everyone flinch. Everyone, except a tiny girl with wide, curious eyes. 6-year-old Lina clung to her mother's hand at first, but something shimmered in the hallway beyond the crowd. A soft glow, a whisper of light, almost like someone calling her name. Elara, distracted by the chaos, didn't notice her daughter's fingers slip free. Lina stepped away, one small foot after another, drawn by the quiet beauty hidden behind the castle's heavy doors. The noise of frightened people faded as she wandered down a corridor lined with velvet drapes and golden torches. She wasn't scared. She felt pulled. Like she belonged here. A large wooden door stood slightly open. Lina pushed it gently and slipped inside. The room was silent. Cold. Sacred. Paintings lined the walls, tall portraits in gold frames, each lit by soft flames. Beautiful women dressed in royal gowns stared back at her from centuries long gone. Former queens. Royal mates. Great Luna figures of the past. Lina walked deeper, her small shoes echoing softly. Then she stopped. Her breath caught. There, above the mantel, hung a face she knew. A face she saw every morning when she woke up. A face she kissed goodnight before falling asleep. The gentle smile, the soft eyes, the blue pendant around her neck. Her mother. Her own mother. Elara. Lina's tiny hand trembled as she reached up to touch the frame. "Mommy," she whispered, confused. "Why are you here?" Before she could blink, a voice, deep, powerful, commanding, filled the room. "No one is allowed in this chamber." Lina froze. She turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was Alpha King Kael, the most feared ruler of the north. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black armor, with eyes sharp enough to cut through stone. But right now, he wasn't angry. He looked stunned. As if he were staring at a ghost. His eyes moved from the portrait, to the child, then back again. His chest rose once, sharply, like he couldn't breathe. Lina blinked up at him innocently and asked, "Sir, why is my mommy's photo here?" The king's world shattered. Shock. Recognition. Confusion. And something deeper, something broken, flooded his eyes. She had just asked the one question no one in the kingdom was ever meant to ask. The Alpha King did not move at first. He stood utterly still, one hand braced against the stone doorframe as if the world had tilted beneath his feet. His jaw clenched, his chest rising with a slow, controlled breath, too controlled, too forced. Only someone with a keen eye would notice the tremor that briefly tightened his fingers. But Lina saw none of that. She only saw a tall man with strange, shining eyes staring at her like he had forgotten how to speak. Kael finally stepped inside. Each footstep echoed heavily, the air shifting with the weight of his presence. The torches flickered as if bowing to him. His aura filled the room, powerful, cold, and commanding, but under it was something fractured. Something he fought desperately to hide. He stopped only a few feet from the little girl. His icy expression snapped back into place, like armor returning to a wounded soldier. "What is your name, child?" he asked, voice deep but oddly restrained. Lina didn't flinch. "Lina." Kael's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in disbelief. Her scent drifted to him, soft, warm, familiar. Embedded within it was something unmistakable. Alpha blood. Royal blood. His blood. But that was impossible. He inhaled again sharply, needing to be sure. No mistake. His wolf surged inside him, growling one word he wasn't ready to hear. Ours. Kael staggered a half-step back, a movement so subtle most would miss it. But the guards who had followed him to the doorway didn't. They tensed immediately, exchanging uneasy glances. Something about this child was wrong. No, not wrong. Powerful. Dangerous. Important. The king shot them a warning glare, and they bowed their heads, stepping back. He returned his gaze to the girl. Her eyes, bright, innocent, wide, held the exact same shade of molten silver that he saw in his own reflection. His heart slammed painfully in his chest. No. No. It couldn't be. Keeping his voice steady was a battle he barely won. Tell me, Kael said quietly, who is your mother? Lina smiled, thinking it was a simple question. She lifted a small finger and pointed at the portrait behind her. My mommy, she said proudly. Her name is Elara. Do you know her? The name hit Kael like a blade to the heart. The world narrowed. The torches dimmed. The room tilted. For a moment, the Alpha King, feared by nations, undefeatable in war, nearly lost his balance. His breath caught. His vision blurred. His hand shot out to the nearest pillar, fingers digging into the stone to steady himself. Elara. His Elara. The woman he had loved beyond reason. The woman he had lost. The woman who was supposed to be dead. His forbidden mate. Images flashed through his mind, her laughter, her touch, the way she called his name. The night she disappeared. The endless years of searching. The lies his counsel fed him. The grief that nearly destroyed him. And now. Her child stood before him. A child with his eyes. A child carrying his scent. A child calling Elara, Mommy. Kael's chest squeezed painfully. He tried to speak, but his throat closed. Lina tilted her head, confused by the way the king suddenly looked so broken. Kael swallowed hard and forced himself upright, masking the storm inside with the coldest expression he could manage. But nothing, not even the Alpha King's control, could hide the truth that had already shattered him. Elara was alive. She had a daughter. And that daughter might be his. His heart roared like the storm outside. The moment Lina spoke Elara's name, the castle, the storm, the guards, everything, faded from Kael's senses. A hush fell over his mind, and something deep within him unlocked. Memories he had buried long ago tore their way to the surface. He had been younger then. Not the cold, hardened Alpha King he was now, but a fierce, restless prince with too much passion in his heart and too many expectations on his shoulders. Everyone feared him. Everyone obeyed him. Everyone bowed. Except her. Elara had arrived at the palace as the new healer's apprentice. Quiet. Graceful. With eyes like dawn and a gentle power that followed her like a warm breeze. Kael remembered the first moment he saw her. She was kneeling beside an injured wolf pup, hands glowing faintly as she whispered soft words of comfort. The world had gone still. She looked up and met his eyes with no fear, only curiosity. Your Highness, she said softly, you're scaring him. No one had ever spoken to him like that. And instead of anger, Kael had felt something inside him crack open, something tender, something dangerous. They became close slowly at first. A shared smile in the corridor. Late-night conversations in the healing gardens. Secret training sessions where she taught him to control the darker parts of his wolf. Elara was the first person who dared ask. "Kael, do you ever feel lonely?" He remembered swallowing hard, unable to lie. Every day. With her, he could breathe. With her, he was not just a prince. He was simply Kael, flawed, afraid, hopeful. Their love grew like fire, bright, undeniable, and impossible to hide. But the palace walls had ears. The council had plans for Kael. And a prince choosing a healer instead of a noblewoman threatened centuries of political alliances. Whispers began. "She is too powerful. She has the old magic. She will weaken the royal bloodline. She must be removed." Kael had sensed danger creeping closer, but he underestimated how far his enemies would go. He remembered it with perfect clarity. The castle alarm sounded. Warriors stormed the healer's wing. Someone had accused Elara of treason, of plotting to harm the royal family. Lies. All lies. Kael fought through the guards to reach her. He found her room torn apart, herbs scattered like drops of blood. The window curtains fluttered violently in the wind. The bed was empty. She was gone. There had been no body. No scent trail. No goodbye. Only a council member's cold words. "She is dead, Your Highness. It is done." Kael's heart had shattered that night. He became colder. Crueler. Harder. His wolf howled for years, grieving a mate he never got to claim. He forced himself to believe the lie: Elara had died. It was the only way to survive the pain. Elara had not died. She had fled. Not because she feared Kael, but because she feared what would happen to him if their enemies discovered she carried something far more precious than her own life. She had left the palace with a hand protectively curled over her stomach, protecting the tiny heartbeat inside her. His child. Their child. A life Kael never knew existed. Kael's breath came out in a shudder as the memory faded. His eyes fell once more on the little girl before him, small, trembling, clutching the edge of her dress. Lina. The child Elara risked everything to keep safe. A child he should have known. A child he should have protected. A child who might be his. Kael's fingers curled into fists as a flood of emotion threatened to crush him: regret, grief, rage, longing, love. The past he thought he buried had returned, in the form of a wide-eyed little girl with his silver wolf eyes. Lina's small hand trembled as she reached up to touch the edge of the golden frame. She had always been careful, so careful when handling her mother's things, but tonight, in her nervous excitement, her finger caught on a sharp corner. A tiny drop of blood fell from her fingertip. It landed on the carved royal crest engraved into the floor beneath the portrait, a symbol of the Alpha King's lineage, etched with the sigil of their pack, glowing faintly under the torchlight. Nothing could have prepared anyone in the room for what happened next. The moment her blood touched the crest, the air shifted. A low hum vibrated through the stone walls of the chamber. The torches flickered violently as if caught in a sudden gust. Kael's eyes widened. He felt it deep in his chest, the unmistakable pulse of ancient magic awakening. The crest beneath Lina's feet glowed a brilliant silver, light radiating outward, reflecting in the child's wide, innocent eyes. The portrait of Elara shimmered, almost as if it were alive, her eyes glowing faintly as if acknowledging the moment. Then came a sound unlike anything Kael had ever heard, a low, echoing howl that resonated inside his bones. The moonstone, the legendary heart of the Alpha Kingdom, began to crack. Fractures spread across its surface like lightning, silver light spilling through every fissure. The chamber shook slightly, dust falling from the vaulted ceiling. And then, from the shadows of the room, faint shapes began to form, wolf spirits, ethereal and translucent, with glowing eyes and flowing silver fur, circling Lina like protective guardians awakened from a centuries-long slumber. Kael instinctively stepped forward, a hand outstretched, ready to shield the girl. But as he approached, the air around Lina shimmered. Her breathing quickened. Her small body trembled, not from fear, but from something inside her stirring for the first time. It was impossible. The wolf inside her, the dormant alpha blood, awakened far earlier than any prophecy had predicted. Lina's eyes flashed silver, matching the glow of the moonstone. Her tiny form lifted slightly off the ground as if the energy itself carried her. A voice, ancient, powerful, and resonating with the echoes of the pack's history, filled the room. The lost heir shall awaken the moonstone and restore the broken pack. The words vibrated through every stone in the castle. The torches flared, the walls trembled, and the entire royal pack, standing silently outside the chamber, knelt automatically. Every alpha, every guard, every wolf of the lineage bowed their heads in reverence. Kael's eyes locked on Lina. His breath caught. Every instinct, every emotion, screamed at him with a force he could not deny. The truth hit him like a thunderbolt. This child, this little girl, is his daughter. The child Elara had risked everything to protect. The princess. The heir. The one who carried the bloodline forward. His knees nearly buckled. His wolf howled inside him, not in anger, but in recognition, pure, primal, and unmistakable. He stepped closer, the icy walls of his control crumbling as he whispered, almost to himself. My daughter, my heir. Lina. The magic continued to pulse, wrapping around the child, the crest, and the room in a silver glow. The prophecy had begun. The lost heir had returned. Kael's mind raced with the realization of everything that had been stolen from him, everything he could never recover, but also everything that might still be saved. For the first time in years, he felt the warmth of hope, and it radiated from the small, glowing figure of the child standing before him, bathed in moonstone light. The Alpha King's world had changed forever. The storm's fury still pounded the castle walls, but inside, an even greater storm was raging. Elara burst into the castle, rainwater soaking her cloak, her hair plastered to her cheeks. Her boots splashed against the marble floor as she darted past the guards, eyes wide with fear and desperation. Stop her, a guard shouted, raising his spear, sensing the unusual energy in the chamber. The silver glow that had erupted from the royal crest pulsed violently, alerting every alpha in the vicinity. But before they could block her path, Kael appeared, stepping forward like a shadow of authority and power. The guards hesitated, sensing the unspoken command in his presence. Elara froze the instant their eyes met. Kael. The Alpha King. The man who had ruled her heart and haunted her dreams for years. Their eyes locked, and in that single moment, time seemed to collapse. Tension, pain, anger, love, betrayal, all clashed inside that gaze. Kael's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell with controlled, measured breaths, yet something in his stance betrayed the storm inside. For the first time in years, he was silent, vulnerable, caught between the past and the present. Lina, sensing the charged energy between the two adults, let go of Kael's cloak and ran straight into her mother's arms. "Mommy," she cried, her small arms wrapping tightly around Elara. Elara's hands trembled as she scooped Lina up, holding her close. She felt the warmth of the child she had protected with everything in her being, the child she had sacrificed years of freedom to keep safe. Tears streaked down her cheeks as she looked at Kael, her expression a mixture of fear and relief. Kael's voice, low and tense, broke the silence. "Elara, why?" he demanded. "After all these years, why did you disappear? Why leave me without a word?" Elara swallowed hard, her throat tight. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, yet nothing could prepare her for the intensity of seeing him again. "Kael, it was never betrayal," she said, her voice breaking. "I never left because I didn't love you. I left to protect you, and our daughter." Kael's eyes narrowed, a storm of anger and confusion swirling within them. "Protect me? From what? From who?" "Elara," Lina interjected softly, clutching her mother's neck. I think the magic, it's happening because I'm here." Kael's eyes flicked to Lina, the glowing silver in her eyes reflecting in his. He turned back to Elara, demanding, "Tell me the truth. Now. No more hiding. What really happened?" Elara took a deep, shuddering breath, her gaze steady on him. "Kael. I was hunted. The enemies, those who wanted to destroy you and your pack, they would have killed all of us if they knew I carried our child. I left because, if they had found out, you could have died. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk losing you, and I couldn't risk losing Lina." The words hit Kael like a blade, slicing through years of pain, anger, and regret. His hands trembled slightly at his sides, fists curling as he fought to contain the tidal wave of emotion threatening to spill over. "And you didn't trust me," he whispered, voice low, strained, almost a growl. "I trusted you with everything," she said, tears streaming freely. "But you couldn't protect us from what you didn't know. I had to make the choice for our daughter's life, for yours too." Kael's wolf howled inside him, a deep, resonant sound of recognition and primal emotion. He took a hesitant step closer, eyes softening as he looked at Lina and then back at Elara. "And now, she's here. Our daughter. Alive. You risked everything for her. You survived." Elara nodded, her tears mixing with the rain still clinging to her face. "Yes. She's alive. She's everything to me, everything we could not have before." Kael's chest tightened as he finally knelt before Lina, his golden eyes glowing with awe, reverence, and something more, love, protection, and a dawning sense of family. "I will protect her, always. And you will never have to hide from me again." Elara stepped closer, closing the gap between them, and their hands brushed. For a long moment, the storm inside the room matched the storm outside, but this time, it was a storm of reunion, of revelation, of beginnings rather than endings. Lina looked up at both of them, her small voice innocent but full of hope. "Can we be a family now?" Kael's throat tightened. He glanced at Elara, then back at his daughter, and a single, resolute word left his lips. "Yes." The magic in the room pulsed, reacting to the bond forming between the three of them. The silver glow of the moonstone seemed to approve, bathing the family in soft, otherworldly light. For the first time in years, Kael allowed himself to hope, to feel, to imagine a future where nothing would ever tear them apart again. The moment Lina's awakening became known in the castle, the world outside shifted. The return of the lost heir, a child born of the Alpha King and his long-lost mate, was no longer a secret that could be contained. Whispers traveled faster than the storm raging over the kingdom. Every alpha in the surrounding lands, every rival pack, every power-hungry noble and warrior, caught wind of the prophecy. The lost heir shall awaken the moonstone and restore the broken pack. Rival alphas, who had once eyed Kael's kingdom with envy, saw an opportunity. This child, the heir, was a key to untold power. If they captured her, they could control the Alpha King, or destroy his legacy entirely. The castle gates rattled under heavy pounding. Mounted riders charged, their black cloaks whipping in the storm, eyes glowing with greed and malice. Behind them, foot soldiers brandished swords, axes, and weapons etched with dark runes. They came not just for a child, but for the throne itself. Inside the castle, Kael's wolf sensed the incoming threat long before the humans arrived. His ears twitched, his golden eyes narrowed, and the room seemed to darken as he exhaled, unleashing a low, guttural growl that shook the walls. Every guard, every member of the royal pack, felt the change. The Alpha King had entered full protective mode. "No one will touch her," he growled, voice deep enough to vibrate in the stone corridors. "Not now. Not ever." Elara stepped beside him, tense but ready. Her past, years of running, hiding, surviving assassins, had prepared her for this moment. She had faced countless hunters, mercenaries, and rival packs in her time, and now, they had come for the one thing she had sworn to protect. The castle erupted into organized chaos. Guards positioned themselves at every entrance. Wolves howled from the towers, their cries echoing across the stormy sky. Spells of binding and protection sparked along the walls, drawn from ancient sigils etched long before Kael's reign. Outside, the enemy alphas pressed forward, believing the child would be unguarded, weak, or vulnerable. They did not account for the raw, primal power of a king protecting his bloodline, or the awakening of a child who carried ancient magic in her veins. Lina, standing between her parents, looked small but formidable. Silver light pulsed around her, her wolf senses manifesting in sudden, uncontrollable bursts. Every heartbeat she felt seemed to resonate with the castle's magic. The moment a blade swung too close, it froze mid-air, as if the very air bent to protect her. Then the real danger arrived. Elara's old enemies, the ones who had once hunted her across kingdoms, appeared at the head of the invading forces. Their eyes were cold, merciless, and filled with the desire to finish what they had started years ago. Kael's fists clenched. His wolf howled in warning, shaking his very soul. Every instinct screamed at him, defend, protect, kill if necessary. He sprang into action, his form moving like liquid shadow. Each strike was precise, deadly, and unstoppable. His enemies quickly realized that the man they had once underestimated as a prince was now a king in his full alpha power, stronger, faster, and unyielding. Elara, though smaller in stature, unleashed her own skills. She moved with lethal precision, her hands glowing with healing and destructive magic combined. The enemies had underestimated her too, thinking a mother protecting her child would be defenseless. They were wrong. Outside, the storm seemed to respond to the battle within the castle. Lightning struck near the enemy ranks, thunder masking the clash of steel and the roar of wolves. And then Lina. Lina's powers flared like never before. She stepped forward, small but fearless, silver light emanating from her very soul. The moonstone's magic pulsed through her veins. Wolves of light emerged around her, spectral and fierce, their howls deafening. She lifted a hand, and the enemies closest to her were thrown back, their weapons frozen in midair by an invisible force. Kael caught her just as her energy surged too strongly, holding her steady. "Focus, Lina," he shouted. "Control it." Elara joined them, her voice rising in a spell of protection and strength. Together, the three of them, father, mother, and daughter, formed a force that no enemy could pierce. The battle raged, but the tide had turned. Rival alphas realized they had underestimated not only the Alpha King but the Heir herself. The prophecy was not merely a legend, it was real, and it had awakened in full force. Kael stood, golden eyes blazing, chest heaving, with Elara and Lina at his side. The enemies faltered, fear overtaking arrogance. They would not leave the castle alive, nor would they ever again dare to challenge the Alpha King of this kingdom while the lost heir remained. In that moment, Kael understood something undeniable: this was not just a child. This was the key to his legacy, the spark of hope that could restore the broken pack and unite the kingdom as it had never been before. And no force on earth, no matter how powerful, would ever take her from him. The battle had ended, the enemies defeated, but the storm outside had not yet cleared. Inside the castle, the silver glow of the moonstone lingered, bathing the halls in soft, ethereal light. Lina sat quietly in the great hall, her small hands tracing the floor's intricate carvings, still mesmerized by the magic she had unleashed. Kael watched her from across the room. His massive frame made him seem almost frighteningly large to a child, and his golden eyes, so often feared by others, now held something more: curiosity, caution, and a deep, yearning need to connect. He stepped forward, unsure how to approach her. Every instinct screamed to protect, to shield, to command, but not to soothe. He wasn't used to gentleness. Not with anyone, and certainly not with someone so small and fragile. "Lina," he said, his voice soft but still carrying weight. "Do you understand what happened?" She looked up at him with wide, silver-flecked eyes. For a moment, she hesitated, unsure if this enormous man was friend or threat. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I think so," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The wolves, the magic, it was me." Kael's chest tightened. "Yes," he said. You did that. That was your power." She fidgeted with the hem of her dress, glancing at him. Are you my dad?" Kael froze. The question hung in the air like a delicate thread, impossible to grasp without careful handling. He swallowed hard, trying to find words that would not terrify her or betray the storm of emotions inside him. "Yes," he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I am your father. And I will protect you. Always." Lina's lips curved into a tentative smile. Slowly, she reached for a piece of parchment and some crayons she had found in the library earlier. She began drawing quietly, glancing at Kael every now and then to gauge his reaction. When she was done, she handed him the paper. On it was a simple picture: a giant wolf, with gold eyes and a fierce smile, standing protectively over a small girl with silver eyes. Above it, in crooked, childlike letters, were the words, "Daddy Wolf." Kael's chest tightened. The name struck him in a way no battle, no victory, and no enemy ever had. For the first time, he allowed himself to kneel down, bringing himself closer to her level. "Daddy Wolf," he repeated softly. His hand hovered, trembling slightly, before brushing her hair back gently. Lina giggled, the sound like sunlight cutting through the storm. Slowly, she inched closer, resting her small hand in his. Kael, enormous and awkward, felt like a giant learning to balance on fragile ice, terrified of crushing the very thing he most wanted to protect. Meanwhile, Elara watched from the doorway, her own emotions a storm of conflict. She loved Kael, still, despite all the years and the pain of separation, but she feared the world he ruled. A world of war, of rival packs, of danger that never slept. And now, their child had inherited not only his bloodline but also his magical power, making her a target. Kael noticed her tension. He stepped back slightly, giving Lina a moment to breathe, but his gaze stayed locked on Elara. "You're still afraid," he said quietly, more statement than question. "I am," she admitted, her eyes glistening with both fear and defiance. "This world, your world, it's dangerous. You fight battles I don't want Lina to ever see. I can't bear the thought of losing either of you, again." Kael's jaw tightened. "I've already lost you once. I will not lose you again. And I will not allow anyone to harm our daughter. You know that." "I know," Elara whispered, her hands clenching at her sides. "But that doesn't make it any easier." For a long moment, silence fell between them, charged, thick, unspoken. Their history, their love, their pain, and the weight of everything unsaid filled the space. Kael stepped closer, slowly, cautiously. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Being gentle, being a father, being us again. But I want to try. I need to try, for Lina, for you, for us. Elara's eyes softened, a mixture of relief and lingering weariness. She took a hesitant step forward. Then let's try, she said, almost in a whisper. But carefully, we can't rush anything. And Lina, sensing the unspoken bond forming, tugged gently on Kael's cloak. Can we be a family now? She asked. Kael's eyes softened. He glanced at Elara, then back at Lina, and for the first time in years, allowed himself to feel hope, love, and a tentative peace. Yes, he said, and this time, there was no hesitation, no fear, only promise. The storm outside had not fully passed, but inside the castle, another kind of storm had begun, a storm of healing, of trust, and of love, fragile yet powerful, ready to grow stronger with each passing day. The castle had grown quiet, too quiet. The storm outside had settled into a distant roar, but the air inside was heavy with tension, as if the stone walls themselves were holding their breath. Kael sensed it first. His wolf stirred, a low, warning growl vibrating through his chest. The hallways were filled with shadows, too many to be servants or guards. Enemy alphas had infiltrated the castle, moving with stealth and deadly precision. Their target, Lina, the lost heir, the child who carried the prophecy. Kael's golden eyes narrowed, every muscle in his massive frame coiling like a spring. They've come for her, he muttered, his voice low but thunderous in the silent room. Lina, standing near the glowing moonstone, felt it too. A shiver ran down her spine as silver energy began to ripple from her body, faint at first, then stronger, uncontrolled. Her small hands glowed, and the air around her seemed to hum with power. "Daddy," she cried, her voice trembling. "They're here." Kael moved instantly, his alpha senses heightened to their peak. His wolf howled internally, warning the intruders before they even struck. "Stay behind me," he commanded, placing himself between Lina and the unseen enemies. The castle doors burst open with a deafening crash. Shadowy figures clad in dark armor stormed in, eyes glowing red with malice. They carried blades etched with dark runes, designed to harm alphas and corrupt magic. Kael's wolf surged forward. His body began to shift subtly, fur bristling, muscles expanding, the full alpha king form emerging. His golden eyes flared, and the sheer force of his presence knocked several intruders off balance. His claws, sharpened and lethal, tore through the first wave with terrifying precision. But Lina's magic was wild, unpredictable. She stumbled backward as silver tendrils of energy spiraled out of her, knocking over furniture and igniting the torches in blinding bursts of light. "Elara!" Kael shouted, realizing they couldn't handle this alone. From the shadows, Elara stepped forward, her presence commanding and fierce. Her own wolf abilities, honed in secret over years of survival and training, erupted in a brilliant display. Silver fur shimmered along her arms, claws extended, and her howl joined Kael's in a duet of pure alpha power. Together, father and mother moved like a storm of claws, fangs, and magic. They tore through enemy ranks with synchronized precision, protecting Lina while sending the attackers flying back. But Lina, her fear and anger fused with power, was unstoppable. She lifted her tiny hands, and the moonstone's energy surged, responding to the bloodline that had awakened within her. Silver beams of light shot from her fingertips, binding enemies in place, freezing them mid-attack, and creating barriers that shimmered like liquid glass. The enemies faltered. They had expected a child, weak, vulnerable, powerless. They had not expected the heir of the Alpha King, wielding the power of the Moonstone itself. One by one, the intruders fell, trapped in silver light or hurled backward by Kael and Elara's combined force. Lina's magic flared again, stronger than ever, forming a protective dome over the family. Wolves of light, spiritual guardians of the lineage, emerged around her, glowing and howling in unison, striking fear into the hearts of the enemy alphas. Kael, panting but unstoppable, glanced at Lina. Her eyes were silver, glowing, fierce, yet full of innocence. "You are the power of the pack," he growled. "Use it." With a cry that echoed like thunder, Lina raised her hands higher. The moonstone above her cracked fully, releasing a cascade of silver energy that enveloped the castle. The force blasted the enemy alphas off their feet, disarming them and leaving them unconscious or fleeing in terror. Elara moved to Lina's side, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "It's over," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. "You did it." Kael sank to one knee, his golden eyes on Lina. "You are everything," he said, voice raw with awe and pride. "Our daughter. The heir. The savior of the pack." The castle, once a battleground, fell into silence. The moonstone's glow softened, settling into a calm, steady silver light. The storm outside had cleared, leaving only peace, and the three of them standing together, victorious, united. Kael reached out, gently lifting Lina into his arms. She wrapped her small arms around his neck, smiling through exhaustion and relief. Elara stepped close, brushing her hand against Kael's shoulder. For the first time in years, the Alpha King allowed himself to relax. Not because the battle was won, but because the family he had longed for, fought for, and feared losing was finally whole. The prophecy had come to life. The heir had awakened. And together, they were unstoppable. The battle was over. The storm had cleared, leaving the castle bathed in the soft silver glow of the moonstone. Inside the great hall, the royal pack gathered, their eyes fixed on the small figure at the center, Lina, the lost heir, the child who had awakened the ancient prophecy. One by one, the alphas and their warriors bowed their heads in respect. Murmurs of awe and acceptance spread through the chamber. The pack had seen her power, her courage, and the undeniable mark of their bloodline in her glowing silver eyes. "She is the princess," one elder alpha whispered. "She is the heir," another affirmed. "The lost one has returned." Kael's chest swelled with pride and relief. Every ounce of worry, every sleepless night spent imagining what might have happened to Lina, melted away in that moment. He stepped forward, closing the distance between himself and Elara. "Elara," he said, voice low but commanding, heavy with emotion. "Please, stay. Not just for Lina. Stay, for me. For us." Elara's gaze softened, yet hesitation lingered in her eyes. Years of fear, of running, of surviving alone, had left their mark. Could she trust that this world, Kael's world, would not tear her family apart again? Could she stay, not just as Lina's mother, but as Kael's mate, his partner, his equal? Before she could answer, Lina tugged gently at their hands, holding both tightly in her small, warm ones. She looked up at them with wide, shining eyes and whispered, her voice trembling with hope and innocence. "Can we be a family now?" The word struck Kael like lightning, filling every hollow space in his chest. He looked at Elara, then down at Lina, and finally allowed the rawest truth of his heart to surface. "Yes," he said, voice breaking with emotion. "We will be a family. And I swear, I will protect both of you, always. Nothing will ever harm you again. I promise." Tears spilled from Elara's eyes as she nodded, finally letting go of her fear. She leaned in, resting her head briefly against Kael's shoulder, and whispered softly, "Together." Lina's small face broke into a radiant smile. She pressed herself between them, hands still holding theirs, feeling the warmth and strength of their bond. The moonstone above them pulsed gently, as if acknowledging the unity of their hearts. A wave of silver light cascaded through the hall, soft but radiant, washing over the pack. The glow seemed to imbue every alpha and warrior with a sense of peace, strength, and loyalty. This was more than magic, it was a seal, a confirmation of the new bond forged between Kael, Elara, and Lina, and the royal pact that would now follow them into the future. The elders stepped forward, bowing deeply. The princess has returned. The royal pack is whole once more, they announced in reverent voices. Kael lifted Lina into his arms, holding her close, then glanced at Elara. His eyes were soft, filled with love and an unshakable promise. From this day forward, we are a family. And I will guard our bond with everything I am. Forever. The castle, once a fortress of battles, of loss and fear, now resonated with something new, hope, love, and the strength of a family united. Outside, the moon broke through the clouds, silver beams spilling over the castle towers. Inside, the royal family, father, mother, and daughter, stood together, unshakable, unbroken, and ready to face whatever the future might bring. The moonstone glowed brighter, a silent guardian witnessing the dawn of a new era, the era of the lost heir, the reunited family, and the restored Alpha Pack. And in that moment, nothing else mattered, because they were together, and together, they were unstoppable.